read a short opening statement. I want to explain that Senator Cassidy is going to, is it Senator Cassidy?
Roberts and Cassidy.
Oh, Senator Roberts is going to take over while I do two things. One, go over and open the Senate up, and secondly, then I have to be in judiciary because we got some things where we have to have a majority to get things done. So I don't know to what extent I'm going to be face-to-face with you folks, but usually if I had gotten here 5 minutes early, I would have come down and looked you in the eye and say thank you for participating. I want to welcome everyone to part 2 of the committee's hearing on protecting the reliability of U.S. medical supply chain during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the second hearing to discuss COVID-19's effect on our nation's medical supply chain. 2 days ago, we heard from the Department of Homeland Security Office of Procurement, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's Homeland Security investigation on their efforts to shore up the integrity of our supply chain. Today, we're going to hear from a panel of industry experts who represent all corners, maybe I should say various corners, but maybe you all actually do represent all corners of the supply chain. These witnesses have an insider's perspective and will be able to tell us about the challenges that our nation's healthcare industry is facing right now. And we will also hear how the federal government is collaborating and communicating with its industry partners during the pandemic. Indeed, during our first hearing, we heard that DHS is engaged in a whole of government response to combat the virus and is working with state, federal, local, tribal, and international partners in a unified effort to ensure the integrity of our nation's supply chain. Example, we heard from Homeland Security investigations on their efforts to prevent and investigate criminal activity surrounding the pandemic and how it's unbelievable. They've seized hundreds of fake and faulty personnel protective equipment, and they returned over $17 million to victims of COVID-19 fraud. We also heard from the department's chief procurement office on their efforts to cut bureaucratic red tape so that FEMA could easily procure larger volumes of emergency services and supplies. These are things that frontline workers desperately need, and the department answered the call by working with industry to revive and vet companies offering COVID-19 solutions to the federal government. I want to highlight that this continues to be an incredible challenge as thousands of really unscrupulous sellers claim to be able to produce safe and legitimate supplies when what they are actually selling is fake and faulty. Lastly, we heard from the Customs and Border Protection on their efforts to speed up the delivery of high-demand personal protective equipment from manufacturers overseas. As a result, this agency's efforts, we've had over 1 3/10 billion pieces of personal protective equipment entered swiftly into the United States. The list can go on, with many of these efforts being initiated at the beginning of the virus's foothold in the United States. However, my colleagues on the left aren't telling the public these success stories. They would rather spread gloom and doom, a narrative for purposes of, I suppose, winning elections. It's a fact that the federal government's approach to emergency preparedness has always been fraught with challenges, and this goes back to prior administrations, and that word is plural, and beyond. However, my Democratic colleagues would make you believe that these problems are just specific with this administration. So it's simply not true, and we have several witnesses before us today that will testify to the very fact which I will state simply here and now. The federal government has never been prepared to address a national emergency of this type or of this scale, period. In closing, I want to thank the witnesses present today and all the medical and professional and first responders who work day after day to keep Americans safe and healthy. Your dedication to your community is essential to the days and weeks ahead. Before Senator Wyden speaks as ranking member, I want to thank Senator Roberts and any other senator that helps us out with this very difficult Thursday that I have being 3 different places now. Thank you very much. Senator Wyden, take over.